He's clearing leaves from the infinity pool, the morning sun shimmering on the water, when she storms in, hollering that he doesn't belong, loud enough to startle the gulls circling above. Soon, sirens echo, and police cars pull up to this upscale seaside resort. But what happens next isn't what she expects. What's brewing at Tate's Oasis? Stay with me to find out. First, leave your city in the comments. I'd love to see where this story reaches. And if you enjoy it, give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you won't miss these surprising tales. Here we go. Marcus Tate stood by the infinity pool at Tate's Oasis, the gentle crash of waves blending with the hum of a perfect coastal morning. At 42, he still liked rolling up his sleeves, today in a simple polo shirt, to check the pool's filter himself, making sure everything was spotless for his guests. The sun cast a golden glow across the resort's manicured lawns and sleek bungalows, a peaceful scene that felt worlds away from the hustle of city life. A salty breeze carried the faint scent of seaweed, grounding him as he jotted notes on a small pad, his steady hands moving with the care of someone who'd built this place from the ground up. 20 years ago, Marcus was shaking cocktails in a rundown bar, barely scraping by, dreaming of something bigger. With no fancy degree, he taught himself business from library books and worked double shifts to save every penny. He'd spotted this patch of coastal scrubland, a forgotten lot nobody wanted, and took a chance with a bank loan that nearly didn't happen. Bit by bit, he turned it into Tate's Oasis, a 4-star retreat where folks now waited months for a reservation. The seafood restaurant drew raves for its lobster, the bungalows booked solid by families and retirees alike. For Marcus, it wasn't just a business. It was a testament to grit, a dream carved out of long nights and longer odds. He tucked the pad under his arm, ready to head inside when sharp footsteps cut through the quiet, clipped, determined stride on the stone path. He turned to see Linda Voss, a guest who'd checked in yesterday, striding toward him. In her mid-50s, she wore a crisp linen dress and oversized sunglasses, her purse clutched like a shield. She'd already complained about the Wi-Fi and the seagulls, staking her claim as the type who noticed everything. Now her lips were set in a tight line, her eyes fixed on Marcus like he'd just trespassed on her private estate. Linda Voss planted herself by the pool, hands on hips, her voice slicing through the morning calm. "Just what do you think you're doing here?" she demanded, glaring at Marcus as he adjusted the pool skimmer. "This is a high-class resort, not some place for you to tinker around." Marcus paused, wiping his hands on a rag, and met her stare. "I'm Marcus Tate, the owner." "I'm checking the pool equipment," he said, his tone steady as the tide. She let out a sharp laugh, her sunglasses slipping down her nose. "Owner? Oh, please. Don't give me that nonsense," she snapped. "I've stayed at plenty of fine resorts, and the owners don't mess with filters and old shirts like yours." Marcus raised an eyebrow, keeping his cool. "I like to keep things running smooth. It's my place," he replied, turning back to the skimmer. Linda stepped closer, her heels clicking on the stone tiles like a judge's gavel. "Your place? I don't buy that for a minute," she said, her voice dripping with scorn. "The real owner's probably in a suit right now, meeting with important folks, not out here sweating by the pool." Marcus shrugged, unfazed. "Suit or not, I'm the one who built this resort," he said simply. Her eyes narrowed, lips curling into a smirk. "Built it? You? That's a tall tale if I ever heard one," she scoffed. "I know what kind of people own places like Tate's Oasis, and it's not, well, not someone like you." Marcus set the skimmer down, folding his arms. "Someone like me? What's that mean?" he asked, his voice low but firm. Linda waved a hand, dismissing him. "Oh, you know exactly what I mean," she shot back. "This is a 4-star property, classy, exclusive. The owner should have a certain presence, not be out here like some handyman." Marcus tilted his head. "So what's the owner's name then, since you know so much?" he said, a faint challenge in his tone. She bristled, tossing her hair back. "I don't need to know his name to know it's not you," she retorted. "Look at you. No polish, no style. You think I'm fool enough to believe you run this resort?" Marcus exhaled, picking up his notepad again. "Believe what you want. I've got the paperwork to prove it," he said evenly. That set her off. She jabbed a finger at him, her voice rising to a near shriek. Paperwork? Oh, I bet you whipped that up in some basement, she yelled, loud enough to turn heads from the bungalows. You don't belong here, and I'm not letting you fool me or anyone else. Marcus stood his ground. I belong here more than anybody. This is my life's work, he said, unshaken. Linda's face flushed red, her hands trembling with indignation. Your work? Please? Real owners hire folks for this dirty business? She shouted. You're out here alone, poking around like some trespasser. I've got a duty to protect this place from people like you. Marcus looked her square in the eye. People like me? Say it plain, he pressed, calm but unyielding. She snorted, stepping back with a triumphant glare. Fine, you want plain? You don't fit here, she barked. I've been around long enough to know who belongs at a fancy resort like this, and it's not you. With that, she yanked her phone from her purse. I'm calling the police right now. Let's see how you explain this, she declared, waving the phone like a weapon. Marcus didn't flinch, his broad shoulders steady as he watched her dial. Go right ahead, he said, his voice as cool as the ocean breeze. I'm not going anywhere. Linda spun away, punching in 911, her voice shrill as she spoke. Yes, hello? There's a suspicious man at Tate's Oasis claiming he's the owner. He's meddling with the pool. Get here fast. She turned back, smirking. They're coming. You'd better have a good story because I know you're no owner. Marcus just nodded. The truth's good enough for me, he said quietly. The police car screeched to a halt outside Tate's Oasis, their sirens slicing through the peaceful hum of the seaside morning, echoing off the bungalows and down the palm-lined paths. Red and blue lights flashed across the infinity pool, catching the eye of every guest within earshot. And soon a crowd began to spill out from the resort's corners, some from the breakfast patio with coffee cups in hand, others peering over balcony railings or stepping out of the spa in fluffy robes. Officer Hayes, a wiry man with gray streaking his hair and years etched into his frown, climbed out first, his boots hitting the gravel with authority. Officer Kim followed, younger, her dark eyes scanning the scene with a mix of curiosity and readiness. Linda Voss spotted them and barreled forward, her heels smacking the stone tiles like a drum roll, her arm flailing as she pointed at Marcus by the pool. Thank goodness you're here, she hollered, her voice shrill enough to scatter a pair of gulls overhead. This man's been sneaking around, messing with the equipment. Claims he's the owner, but that's a load of hogwash. I caught him red-handed. He's up to no good, and I demand you check him out right now. The crowd stirred, a gray-haired man in a polo shirt muttering over his coffee. What's this now? I seen that fellow here every day. A woman beside him nodded, whispering to her husband. That's Marcus Tate. I'd bet my last dollar she's got it wrong. Marcus wiped the sweat from his brow with a rag, then walked toward the officers with a steady stride, his broad frame cutting through the morning haze like a ship through calm waters. I'm Marcus Tate, the owner of this resort, he said, his deep voice carrying a quiet strength as he fished out his worn leather wallet. I've got my business license, property deed, and a news clipping from when we opened. Everything you need to see. But before he could hand them over, Linda lunged at him, her manicured nails snatching at the wallet. Don't you dare pull that trick on me, she screeched, her face twisting with fury. You think I'm some fool who'll swallow your lies? I've stayed at resorts from Miami to Monterey. I know what an owner looks like, and it's not you. Marcus stepped back, holding the wallet out of reach, his expression unshaken. You want the truth? It's right here, he said, then turned to Hayes. Officer, take a look. Linda's eyes blazed. Truth? I'll give you truth, she spat. You're no owner. I'd wager you scrubbed floors or parked cars before pretending to be somebody. Owners don't sweat by pools. They sit in offices, shaking hands. Marcus met her glare, his tone even but edged. I started at the bottom, pouring drinks in a dive bar, saving every dime to build this place. I don't need anyone's nod to stand on my own land. Hayes took the papers, squinting at them under the bright sun, his thick fingers flipping through the pages with the slow precision of a man who'd seen every excuse in the book. Kim peeked over his shoulder, then broke into a wide grin. Hold on a second. "You're Marcus Tate?" she asked, her voice rising with excitement. "My parents stayed here last summer. Couldn't stop talking about your lobster bisque. And wait, didn't you donate a chunk of cash to fix up our precinct last year? New desks and all?" Hayes glanced up, nodding as he read the deed's date, June 12, 2008, and the business license stamped with Marcus's name in bold black ink. "Checks out," he said, handing the stack back. "He's the owner, plain and simple." The crowd erupted in chatter. A woman in a straw hat called out, "Told ya, he's the real deal." A man near the pool added, "Runs this place better than anyone." Linda's jaw dropped, her breath catching like she'd been slapped. Then she exploded, ripping her sunglasses off and hurling them to the tiles with a clatter. "No, that's impossible!" she screamed, her voice cracking into a high-pitched wail. "Those papers are forged. You're all being conned. I won't stand for this." Linda staggered forward, her heels wobbling as she lunged at Hayes, clawing for the documents. "He can't own this resort," she shrieked, her hair tumbling loose from its tight bun, strands sticking to her flushed cheeks. "Look at him. Grubby shirt, no polish. I've been to the best places. This isn't how it works." The glasses skidded across the stone, one lens popping loose, and she tripped, catching herself on a chair as the crowd gasped. Marcus squared his shoulders, his dark eyes piercing through her chaos. "You don't like how I look? I poured my sweat and blood into this resort. Every brick, every table," he said, his words landing like stones. "What have you built, besides a scene?" Linda recoiled, clutching her purse as if it could shield her. "Don't you talk to me like that," she snapped, but her voice trembled. Guests laughed softly. Someone muttered, "She's been griping since she got here," while a waiter shook his head, whispering to a couple, "Always complaining, now this." Linda spun around, glaring at them all, her composure unraveling like a cheap sweater. The crowd pressed in tighter, their voices rising like a tide. Ed Grayson, a retired businessman with a deep tan and a golf shirt, pushed through from the breakfast patio, his face stern. "I know Marcus Tate," he boomed, loud enough to hush the murmurs. "I shook his hand at the grand opening 5 years back. This resort's his from top to bottom. She's making a fool of herself." A woman in flip-flops nodded fiercely. "He fixed the gazebo last month, worked on it himself." Another guest chimed in. "Best owner I've met. She's the one stirring trouble." Officer Kim turned to Linda, her brow furrowing. "You called him a trespasser, said he's dangerous. Where's your evidence?" Linda's mouth opened and shut, then she thrust a shaking finger at Marcus. "Evidence? Just look at him," she cried. "He's no owner. He doesn't fit." Hayes shook his head, stepping between them. "Ma'am, his papers are solid, and these folks know him. You're spinning tales with nothing to back it up." Linda's hands quivered, her purse slipping to her elbow as she tried to rally. "I know what I see," she shouted, but her words drowned in the crowd's growing disdain. Kim held up a hand, cutting her off. "You accused him of a crime with no proof. That's serious business," she said sharply. Hayes leaned in, his voice low and hard. "We've got this on record. Witnesses all around, plus our audio rolling. You've opened yourself up to a slander suit, and if Mr. Tate presses it, you're looking at court fees and maybe worse. False reports carry fines too. We could write you up right here." Linda's eyes widened, darting from the officers to the crowd, then back to Marcus. I have rights," she stammered. "I'm a paying guest. I can question things." Kim shot back. "Not when you're making up stories. That's where your rights end." Marcus stood there, arms crossed, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Inside he felt the old sting, years of sidelong glances, of folks doubting he could climb this high. But he pushed it aside. He'd faced worse and come out stronger, built this oasis from nothing but grit and late nights. "She's made her call, officers," he said, his voice steady as granite. "I don't need to prove more than I already have." Linda staggered back, her defiance crumbling under the crowd's scorn. "I was protecting this place," she rasped, her tone desperate now. "He doesn't belong running a resort like this." Ed laughed outright. "Lady, he belongs more than you ever will." A woman nearby added, "Go home, she's embarrassing herself." The chuckles spread, sharp and unforgiving, as Linda's shoulders slumped further, her face a mask of fury and fear. Marcus glanced at the officers, a faint nod softening his stance. "Thank you for clearing this up," he said, his deep voice warm but firm. Kim grinned, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "No trouble at all. Glad to meet the man who makes this place tick." Hayes gave a curt nod, then turned to Linda with a final steely look. "You're in deep enough, ma'am. I'd stop digging if I were you," he warned. Linda clutched her purse tighter, her broken sunglasses lying at her feet as she turned away, the crowd's eyes boring into her back. The tension snapped like a wave retreating, leaving her stranded in silence as Marcus stood tall, unshaken, the truth ringing louder than her shouts ever could. Marcus dusted off his hands and turned to the officers with a small, weary smile. "You folks care for a drink? I mix a mean mimosa. My way of saying thanks for sorting this mess," he said, his deep voice warm against the morning breeze. Officer Kim's eyes lit up. "Don't mind if I do," she replied while Hayes gave a gruff nod. Linda Voss, still clutching her purse, spun back around, her face a storm of fury. "You're all laughing now, but I'll have the last word," she shouted, her voice cracking. "I'll get a lawyer, the best there is, and you'll regret crossing me." The crowd jeered, a man calling out, "Good luck with that. Everyone saw you're wrong." Guests lingered by the pool, some pulling out phones to film as Linda stormed off, her heels catching on the tiles. She tripped, her purse spilling lipsticks and a comb onto the path, and a teenager in flip-flops laughed, "Check it out. Resort Karen's going viral." Marcus unlocked the bar with a steady hand, pouring orange juice and champagne as Kim and Hayes watched, the clink of glasses cutting through the murmurs. Linda glared over her shoulder, yelling, "You haven't heard the last of me." But a woman in a sun hat shot back, "Oh, we've heard plenty. Take a hike." The crowd chuckled, their phones still rolling. By noon, the teenager's video hit the web. Karen calls cops on resort owner doing his job. And it spread like wildfire. A local news station picked it up, airing a segment titled "Guests Meltdown at Tate's Oasis Goes National," complete with blurry footage of Linda's rant and Marcus's calm rebuttal. Calls flooded the resort's line, bookings doubling as folks praised Marcus online. "Classiest owner ever, kept his cool." Meanwhile, Marcus mixed drinks for a packed patio, even hosting a spur-of-the-moment toast for regulars, his steady hands pouring generosity into every glass. Linda's world shrank fast. Guests avoided her at breakfast, whispering, "That's her, the one from the video," and a group canceled their stay, muttering about troublemakers. She tried spinning her tale at the front desk. "I was just concerned, that's all." But the clerk shrugged. "Nobody's buying it, ma'am." The news dubbed her Resort Karen, and by evening her name was a punchline from the beach to the bar. Defeated, she checked out early, lugging her bags to a cab as a kid nearby snickered. "See ya, Karen." Marcus hung a hand-painted sign from some regulars by the bar, "To Marcus, the real deal," and stood back, hands in pockets, watching the sunset paint the ocean gold. Folks clapped him on the shoulder, saying, "You showed 'em." He didn't gloat. Didn't need to. Linda's shouts had faded, buried by a truth louder than her noise. Money can't buy a clear eye, and prejudice only digs your own hole. Next time, ask before you judge. It's cheaper than a lawyer. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on more exciting stories every day. See you in the next one.